Hello. Oh, you just thought you were done singing. We have special music today, and it's going to be led by how many volunteers? Two? Two special volunteers. Come on up. You're already ahead. You haven't done a thing yet. And you are going to be the special music. We are simply going to help lead you. So here's how it's going to work. First of all, there are some motions to this song. So we're going to prep our bodies for the motions. Ready? Take your right hand, your index finger, and do this. And now take that finger and go. No, don't do that. Yeah, you too. Go here. Go here. As far as everyone can possibly. Stand up. Okay, next time we'll try it a little quicker. Sit down. And take your hands in. Thank you. All right. You probably know this song. I'm in, right out, right up, right down, right happy all the time. Okay? We're going to lead. Again, we're going to go slow because some of these people are much older than you. So, ready? I'm in, right out, right up, right down, right happy all the time. I'm in, right out, right up, right down, right happy all the time. Since Jesus Christ came in, I gave my heart to Him. I'm in, right out, right up, right down, right happy all the time. And thank you for the two that stood in the back. Thank you. I'm in, right out, right up, right down, right happy all the time. I'm in, right out, right up, right down, right happy all the time. Since Jesus Christ came in, I gave my heart to Him. That's why I'm in, right out, right up, right down, right happy all the time. Yay! I'm in, right out, right up, right down, right happy all the time. I'm in, right out, right up, right down, right happy all the time. Since Jesus Christ came in, I gave my heart to Him. That's in, right out, right up, right down, right happy all the time. Okay, thank you. Yay. Okay. I'm in, right out, right up, right down, right happy all the time. Isn't that a dysfunctional song, though? Who's happy all the time? Yeah. Jesus himself, not happy all the time. But it does illustrate something that gets us into today's topic. How many of you here were last week? All right, cool. So you know that last week we kind of started this new series. By the way, you're stuck with me for 4 weeks. The new series on the 12 steps called The Journey is the Goal. And really all we're talking about is the 12 steps is nothing more than showing us how the gospel actually works. It is the mechanics of how the gospel works. And the reason we did that song is kind of cool is because it shows the 3 ways that we as human beings connect. We connect inright with ourselves. We connect outright with other people and upright with God. Downright happy all the time. We don't really connect downward. But those are the 3 areas we have relationships in. 3 main ways we have connections. We have connections with God, connections with others, and connection with ourselves, our own heart and spirit. When any one of those connections are broken, when any one of those relationships are broken, we lose peace. Last week, we talked about the missing pieces in our heart and our spirits and how God created us with these basic emotional, spiritual needs, and we're supposed to have those needs met initially through our parents and ultimately through God. And when those needs are not met, how we use other things to try and fill those needs. Or we use things to try and kill the pain of not having them met. Addiction, and another word for addiction, sin, is all about destroying those connections, destroying our relationship, eating away at our relationship with God, with others, and with ourselves. And God is all about reconnecting and healing the relationships between us, Him, others, and our own heart and spirit. And that's what we're going to get into today. How does this happen? How do we begin to reconnect with the broken pieces of our lives and the broken relationships in our lives? Steps, the 12 steps is, you could also call it the journey of peace, because the 12 steps is also about reconnection. It's also about having peace with God, peace with ourselves, and peace with others. And if we have peace this way, and this way, guess what? There's nowhere in our life we're at war anymore. And we begin to understand the fulfillment and the realization of Jesus' promise to us of giving us a peace that passes understanding. Today's topic is steps 1 through 3, peace with God. How does that happen? Step 1 of the 12 steps. We admitted we were powerless over our sinful human nature and that our lives had become unmanageable. 2 words can sum up step 1. I can't. I can't. That is step 1. Have you ever noticed how many opposites, seemingly opposites, God deals in? Read the New Testament. Jesus was constantly throwing out these paradoxes, these things that seem so opposite, to try and adjust and reconfigure people's perspective and the way they viewed God, the world around them, and themselves. Think about something. It's no wonder that people listened to Jesus and walked away thinking, this guy's a lunatic. Just listen to what he says. He said, do you want to live forever? You got to die. To live, you must die. In heaven, the greatest is the least, and the least will be the greatest. The first shall be last. The last shall be first. And he says, do good to those who do bad to you. Someone does bad to you, do good unto them. Don't hate your enemies. Love your enemies. Give all and expect nothing in return. The power of those paradoxes is the same kind of power that's behind step 1. The power in step 1 is when I come to and realize and admit and confess and see my greatest weakness, I begin to find my greatest strength. Step 1 is about coming to the end of ourselves and the beginning of God. Step 1, I can't. I want to try and explain a little bit about how all of this centers around our God-given, created power of choice. For an addict, every time the alcoholic chooses to take a drink, he gives away a little bit of his ability to say no to that drink. Every time a drug addict chooses to take his drug of choice, he surrenders a little bit of the power, the desire, and the will to say no to that drug of choice. It eats away at our resolve. It eats away at our ability to turn away whenever we choose whatever our drug of choice happens to be. What is our drug of choice? It's whatever we're powerless over in our lives. Step 1, I admitted that I am powerless. Take a look at the things we're powerless in our lives over. Are we powerless over alcohol? Are we powerless over some drug? Are we powerless over cigarettes? Are we powerless over something that doesn't seem like it's doesn't come across as a typical addiction? What about anger? I just can't control my temper. What about pride? Ego? What about the words that I say? And I don't mean just swearing. I don't mean just cursing and taking God's name in vain. I mean, what about backstabbing, gossip, anything. The Bible says the tongue is a two-edged sword. What about the words that I say about myself and others? What are the things we're powerless over in our lives? Things we can't control. Every time we choose a pet sin, every time we choose to indulge in whatever our drug of choice is, we are giving away a little bit of our ability to say no to that sin. It is just like it was in the Garden of Eden. Let me ask you a question. Why did Jesus die? This is where you talk back to me. Why did Jesus die? For our sins. Okay. So Jesus died so that you could be saved. No. Jesus did not die so you could be saved. Jesus died so you could choose to be saved. And there's a huge difference. Because Jesus died on the cross does not mean you're automatically saved. Let me explain. In the Garden of Eden, remember the scene. There was the tree, the knowledge of good and evil. And there was Eve. And Eve, poor Eve. Here she is on her own. And let me ask you a question. Who created the Garden of Eden? Who created Eve? Who created Adam? Who walked and talked with Adam and Eve? Who gave them everything they ever knew? Who did Eve listen to? Who gave her what? Boy, I'm glad we're not like her. God who gave her everything. And she listens to the serpent who gave her nothing. And she takes the fruit. And she gives to Adam. And the two of them, they do eat. And in that instant, they gave away their freedom of choice that God created them with. At that moment, they had no power left to say no to Satan. And Satan knew it. At that moment, he knew he had won. He's like, I got them. I have the human race. They chose me over you. I win. And he did his victory dance. No, Satan dances better than me. That was really bad. But whatever he did, he's winning. He's thrilled. I've got it. Ah! And then God steps in and says, just a moment. I am going to do something that you didn't expect, Satan. But we'd planned it long before because God and I are so much smarter than you. So let me tell you what we're going to do. As you took away, or they gave away, Adam and Eve gave away their freedom of choice at this tree, I'm going to hang on a tree and give them back their freedom of choice. And we have what's called in the Bible the very first messianic prophecy. It's the first time in the Bible that a promise is given of a coming Messiah. And this is what he said. In Genesis 3:15, all the players are present. Adam's there, Eve's there, Satan's there through the serpent. God is there, and he says to the snake, by the way, he's saying this to Satan, I will put enmity between you and the woman and between your offspring and hers. He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel. Genesis 3:15, the first messianic prophecy. What was God's very first gift to fallen man? The ability to hate. That was his first gift to us. Because without him dying on the cross, we would have no power to hate sin. Enmity is a harsh form of hatred. And he said, Satan, I am going to step in and I'm going to give them back their ability to hate sin. I'm going to give them back their ability to hate you. I'm going to give them back their ability to say no. And that's why Jesus died on the cross, so you could have the choice that he created man with. Now that is love. So step one is all about getting back our freedom of choice. What are the things we are powerless over in our lives? Is it drugs? Is it alcohol? Is it anger? Is it pornography? Is it fear? What are we afraid of? How many of us go around in life when we live every day in fear of something terrible happening, or in fear of someone, something? And we're talking about the words that we say. What do you struggle with? What have you fought with and go, why can't I just get the victory over this? Step one is saying, look at your life, and God says, tell me, what are you powerless over? What can you not choose against? Today and every day for the rest of the steps, I want to give you, and this is one of the things I love about the 12 steps, I want to give you very specific things to do for each step. One of the things about the 12 steps is that it will give you the concept and the principle of reestablishing your connection with God and peace, but then it's going to say, here's a way you can do it. Here's a tangible, real way you can do it. Here's what I want you to do. So, run to Walmart or Target, not now, but sometime. Buy yourself, and this is important, don't go home and pull out something out of a drawer. Buy yourself a notebook and a pen or a pencil. And this is the only thing you use this notebook and pen or pencil for. Make them special. Make them sacred unto God. Take them to Him and ask Him to bless this notebook and pencil. I'm not being facetious. And step one, I want you to write down with courageous honesty the things in your life that you are powerless over. What have you fought with? What have you struggled with? What can I not seem to overcome? Put those things down. Tell them to yourself. Tell them to God. And tell them to someone else. Tell them to me. I want to hear. Come talk to me. Send me an email. I'm not being facetious. I want to know what your list is. I really do. I'll bet you've got some things on your list that I've got on my list. I've already asked Pastor Tony. He said it's fine. Email him. Email Pastor Dane. Find someone. Tell him what's on your list. I promise you, you're not going to shock anybody. Share your list. Make it and share it. That is the beginning of experiencing freedom and release from those things we're powerless over. Take that list, move into step two. Step two, I came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. Last week I showed you a picture of my mom on a bad day. This is my dad on a good day. I am so going to pay for that. The key to this step are these words, a power greater than myself. Step one was I can't. Step two is God can. I can't, God can. Another way to say step three, here's a good words to live by. There is a God, and you're not Him. This is the thing behind step two. Step two wants us to take a look at where in our lives have we tried to be God? Where have we tried to do the things that God says only I can do? That seems pretty harsh, doesn't it? It seems like, well, I've never tried to be God. When was the last time I tried to say, let there be light, and there was light? All right, we don't do it that way. But maybe here's how some ways we do try and be God or play God. Let's throw out vengeance. Sometimes we take on the cape and cloak to become the mighty avenger. And we visit the wrath of what they deserve on the people that have harmed us unto their third and fourth generation and their children's children because they did wrong to us. You may think, well, I've never done that. Let me give an example. Talking about myself now. Let's throw out an example of a place where God is seldom invited and angels fear to tread. 5 o'clock traffic in Las Vegas. Now, any of you ever been in one of the construction zones? Okay, you can't live here and not live in a construction zone. They're building roads everywhere. See if this is true for you. You know, they're going from 3 lanes to 2 lanes. You're going down, and everybody's sitting there, and you're waiting, and you got, and you're sitting in line. It's moving barely slow. And then some, hot rod in a Corvette comes zipping by on that 3rd lane you know is going to end, and he bypasses everybody right up until the point where he has to merge. And he's just waiting for somebody to let him in. And it's at that point we feel this deep, deep need to share the love of Jesus with the person in front of us. So we get really, really close to them so we can connect. And we wave at them. Jesus loves you. Or perhaps you've done this. Sometimes I'm in that situation and I go, I am a pastor. I give grace where grace is not deserved. And I will have goodness and mercy on this poor, lost individual, and I'm going to allow them in, and I slow up, and everything's wonderful until I don't get the wave. You know the wave. Thank you. Somebody pulls in, and I don't get where's my wave? I just gave you something you didn't deserve. Let me share the love of God with you. How easy we become the mighty avenger. How easy it is when people wrong us, we fill ourselves full of resentment. When I try to do God's job of handing out vengeance, I become full of resentment. Because what does God say about revenge? He tells us to leave it alone. He says, it is mine to avenge. I will repay. In due time their foot will slip, their day of disaster is near, and their doom rushes upon them. Now don't get too excited in traffic and you go, your doom's coming on you, buddy. It says so in the Bible. But God says, let me deal with this, because I'm the only one big enough and smart enough to know when to hand out vengeance. You can't. And when you try and do, you become full of resentment. You know what resentment is? Here's your definition of resentment for the day. Resentment is the poison that I take to kill you. Resentment is what I do in my head and all those terrible, wonderful, awful, your day of doom is coming that I imagine is going to happen to you inside my head because you wronged me. Resentment is the poison I take to kill you, and it poisons my own soul and spirit. Let God be the avenger. Something else we might do is we will slip on the universal robe of justice and become the judge of all creatures everywhere. And we judge people. We judge situations. We judge other things. A good example of this was out of the Bible. Remember the woman caught in adultery? When the woman was caught in adultery, there was a group of people standing around, and they had already been judge and jury and passed judgment on her because of what they were told she had done, why they believed she had done it, and what she looked like. Well, yes, she deserves to be condemned. And Jesus himself starts writing in the sand, and Jewish tradition tells us that he started writing sins in the sand that the people standing around recognized as their own. And one by one, the rocks of condemnation dropped, and everybody left. And Jesus says, woman, where's everybody who judged you, who condemned you? Neither do I condemn you. This is the kind of judge we need. It's not the kind of judge we can be. How many people caught in whatever have been thrown in our life that we pass judge and jury on, and we have the rocks of condemnation through words that we throw at them? Only God can judge. And what does he say? He says, judge not, and you will not be judged. Do not condemn, you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Let me be the judge of the world at the end of time, God says, because I'm the only one who's big enough and smart enough to do it. One other way that we tend to lose peace by trying to do God's job is we tend to put other things in God's place. There is a throne of our hearts that only God is to sit on, and anytime we replace God with something else, that thing becomes our God. I put up chocolate sundae because for me, it's exceptionally hard to go past the McDonald's and not buy the hot fudge sundae with double nuts and a cherry, which is only $1, by the way. What a deal. Sin is cheap. Anyway, did you know there are no atheists? Everybody has a God. You want to know what your God is? Answer 2 questions. 1, what do you spend the most time with? 2, what are you willing to sacrifice for? There's your God. What do you give most of your time to? What will you sacrifice for? That's your God. So anytime we put something in place of God, that thing becomes a tyrant to us. We will serve whatever that person or that thing is, that relationship or that drug, or whatever it is, becomes a tyrant to us because only God is big enough to be God. And we lose peace when there's anything there other than him. Step 2. Here's your action for step 2. In the same notebook, on a different page, I want you to write down and answer a few questions. First question: where have I judged others? Where have I heard stories about somebody or something and I made a judgment? Where have I judged somebody else and held rocks of condemnation in my heart or in my words? Where have I judged others? Question number 2. Do I have any resentments against people or institutions? I know quite a few Adventists who grew up in some not very nice situations of their home church, and they have a lot of resentments towards the church. Don't limit resentment to people. It can be against places. It can be against institutions, schools, churches. Who and what do I resent? Question number 3. What things or people in my life do I try to control? What situations in my life, what people in my life do I try to manipulate emotionally, spiritually, however? What things do I try and control? And number 4, what areas in my life do I leave God out? There are areas of our life we so want God to be a part of. Yes, Lord, take this thing here in my life. I want it to be yours in your hands. This over here, I got it. Not a problem. You take a break. I can deal with it. What areas in our life do we not let God into? Do we not let God have? Sometimes it's our marriage. Sometimes it's our money. Sometimes it's whatever. Where do we not let God in? Let me reiterate here. This takes some courageous honesty to sit down and look at these in a serious way and go, where have I been this way? Action step 2. Then I want you to take both those lists and move in to step 3. Step 3 is, I made a decision to turn my will and life over to the care of God as I understood him. I like step 3 because I haven't given my life to God yet. I've made a decision to give my life to God. And I know some people think this is just semantics, but it's very important. A choice comes before an action. And on the road to recovery and in the journey of peace, I make a choice first, because it all comes back to choices. I make the choice to give my life to God, and then I give it to him. Let me see if we can illustrate for you through our skit here what it looks like to move through steps 1, 2, and 3. We're going to do a skit for you now called Passions. Passions. Here's how sin works. But each one of us is tempted when by his own evil desire he is dragged away and enticed. Then after desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is full grown, gives birth to death. Here's how you remember how sin works. Sin is sad. It is seductive, it is addictive, and then it is destructive. Sin is sad. Generally, we don't take huge steps away from God. Generally, we take very small steps away. Way back in the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve gave away their power of choice with one bite of the apple. Now it works a little bit different. Now Satan takes our will and our power to choose with one nibble at a time. And he holds that whatever it is that he knows is our weakest our greatest temptation, our weakest point, and he leads us step by step away until our attention is so focused on that thing. And then every time we choose that thing, whatever it is, we build a link of a chain, emotional, spiritual chains that wrap around us and lock us and hold us to that thing. And no matter how hard we struggle, no matter how hard we fight on our own, we will never, ever be able to break free. And remember, that chain is a series of our choices. This is all about our power to choose. And when we're there, and we're in that place, and we've given away little by little our simple desire, our simple ability to not choose our drug of choice, the only thing that can set us free is the power that God puts in His Word. And He gave us promises. And what He said, then they cried to the Lord in their trouble, and He saved them from their distress. He brought them out of darkness and the deepest gloom and broke away their chains. Psalms 107, 13 and 14. At the first turning of our hearts towards God, no matter how long, big, or strong those chains are, they will drop in an instant, and not Satan himself or the powers of hell will keep you from walking to the cross, because your freedom and my freedom is God's passion. And this promise never fails because it is His power that breaks the chains. Now, I've got to tell you, that generally is not a one-time event. For most of us, this has to happen sometimes many times a day. Some of us actually go back and put the chains on ourselves because we've had them for so long, they're comfortable. But I promise you, every time we turn to God with our powerlessness in step one, God, I can't, I believe you can, I think I'll let you. In step three, the chains will drop and we will be free. I want to read you a story. I've learned an awful lot at bedtime with my 19-month-old daughter, because I read bookies at night. It's Dad, Baby, and Bookies, and I've learned an awful lot about God through some of the books we've read together. I want to share another one with you this week, and we're going to try something. We're going to try bringing Aspen up, and I'm going to read a book to Aspen, or maybe not. And as I do this, I want you to take off your adult hat, and as Jesus said, become like a little child. Aspen. Hi. You want to read a bookie? Daddy. Look what we have. All by myself. Look at those people. Funny looking, aren't they? Like, what are y'all doing here at bedtime? Every morning, Maya and her mother had breakfast together. Hey, Maya's mother would reach her long trunk high into the branches of a tree and pick the juiciest leaves for them to eat together. Thank you. But one morning, just as her mother was about to reach up and pick some leaves for breakfast, Maya said, I want to do it. You do that all the time, don't you? But you are just a little elephant, said her mother. I want to do it, said Maya, all by myself. Very well, said her mother. That's an elephant. And that's an elephant. Maya looked at the tree. It was very tall, and the leaves seemed far away, she thought for a bit. Then she picked up a branch that was lying on the ground, and stretching up as high as she could, swish! She swished at the branches above, trying to knock the leaves down. And the branches swayed and shook, but the leaves didn't fall. That's an elephant. That's baby elephant. That's mommy elephant. Yep, mommy's over there. An old lion who was snoozing nearby came to see what all the swishing was about. I can climb the tree with my claws and pick some leaves. Oops. It's a good thing it's a library book. And confession's good for the soul. I can let you go down and see mommy. Okay, you just wander around. I can climb the tree with claws and pick you some leaves if you like, he growled sleepily. No, thank you, said Maya politely. I want to do it all by myself. Maya thought some more. Then she had another idea. She ran down to the water hole, and there she stretched out her trunk and sucked up as much water as she could. When her trunk was full, she ran back to the tree, pointed her trunk, and blew. Whoosh! The water whooshed into the tree, getting everyone wet. The branches splashed and they dripped, but the leaves did not fall. A bird who had been sunbathing at the top of the tree came down to see what all the whooshing was about. What do you think you're doing? She squawked, flapping water off her wings. When Maya explained, the bird chirped, I can fly to the top of the tree and pick you some leaves if you like. No, thank you, said Maya. I want to do it all by myself. Maya looked up at the tree and thought very hard. And then she stepped back 3 paces, took a deep breath, and charged at the tree, pushing the trunk as hard as she could. Bump! But the tree did not move, and the leaves did not fall. My head hurts, said Maya sadly. Suddenly, a snake appeared from underneath a rock. If you like, he hissed, I can slither up and pick you some leaves. No, thank you, Maya whispered. I want to do it all by myself. But this time, Maya had no ideas. It was such a tall tree, and she was only a little elephant. Then a voice she knew very well said gently, I have an idea. And with that, Maya's mother carefully slipped her long tusks under Maya, and curling her trunk around her little elephant, lifted her high into the branches of the tall tree. Maya stretched out her trunk and picked all the juiciest and greenest leaves she could, all by herself. Maya was a very happy little elephant, and her mother was a very proud mother. Together they ate their breakfast, and Maya thought it was the very best breakfast she'd ever had. And then together they strolled off across the plains as the sun rose in the sky. Thank you. What do we do in our lives where we try to do it all by ourselves? What are the trees we keep bashing into? What things and where in our life are we powerless? When can we come to believe that there is a power greater than us, and we make the decision to let God wrap us in his arms, put us on his shoulders, and together in his strength break the chains and be free? I'd like to ask you to bow your heads and close your eyes. And I want you to think for a moment. I want you to consider the challenge you've been presented this morning to courageously and honestly take a look at your life. There is nothing you can think of, say, or do that's going to surprise God. You're not going to shock him. Where have we been powerless? What do we have that we've chained ourselves up in? Where are we not free? Father God, we want to bring those things to you right now this morning. I know you sit on the edge of your throne desperately wanting to make your peace a reality in our lives. I know you want to reconnect and heal our relationships with you. Where we don't have peace, where we don't have a connection with you, where we have tried it on our own and have come to nothing. I ask that you will take those things now. Help us to let them go to you. We cry out to you in our darkness, our distress, and we want to claim your promise that you will set us free and the chains will fall off and you will bring us into the light of your love and your peace. And if we need to do that 1,000 times today, help us to do it 1,000 times. Because every time your word will set us free and make us free indeed. Thank you for hearing and answering, because we are your sons and daughters, because we are your precious children, and that we have asked it in our brother's name, Jesus. Amen. Don't forget, I want to see your lists. I want to hear from you. I really do. Have a great rest of the Sabbath and go forward in strength and peace.